Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Very good evening to you. We start the news hour with the mounting pressure facing the Prime Minister over her Brexit strategy. The day began with the DUP accusing her of total betrayal following suggestions that a plan for a customs border down the Irish Sea could yet be included in a Brexit divorce deal. And as senior ministers rushed to try to reassure their Commons partners that all would be well, Theresa May was told that Jo Johnson has resigned from government over her approach to Brexit. Well, in a moment we'll go live to County Tyrone in Northern Ireland and speak to our senior Ireland correspondent David Blevins, who's been talking to the DUP leader Eileen Foster this afternoon. First, though, let's go to Westminster and speak to Sky's Laura Bundup with the very latest on Jo Johnson's resignation. Laura, is it clear why he's gone?
It certainly is, because he's released a statement on his Facebook account, a little video too, and he's also released a longer written statement as well, in which he describes the choice that the British people and the UK is facing at the moment as no choice at all, a choice between the Chequers proposal, which he says would leave the UK economically weakened, and a choice between no deal, which he said would inflict untold damage on our nation. He says these choices mean and leave the UK in a situation standing on the brink of the greatest crisis since the Second World War. This choice is a basic failure of British statecraft on a scale unseen since the Suez Crisis. So very strong language from Jo Johnson there. He also throws his support behind a second referendum, letting the people have a say on that final deal. He did, as I say, release a video on his Facebook page. Here's a little more of what he had to say.
We are barrelling towards an incoherent Brexit that is going to leave us trapped in a subordinate relationship to the EU, with no say over the rules that will govern huge swathes of our economy. This is completely unacceptable and unsustainable for a proud democracy such as our own. In fact, so great is the gulf now between what was promised in the referendum campaign and what is now on offer in the Prime Minister's proposed deal that I have had no choice but to submit my resignation to the Prime Minister this afternoon.
Well, unlike his older brother, Boris Johnson, the former Foreign Secretary who also quit over Brexit, he was a Remainer. Jo Johnson voted for Remain, and that's where he stands. But he is, I think, most significantly, the most high-profile Conservative MP to throw their weight behind the people's vote. We've had a tweet from his brother, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson tweeted a little earlier, "Boundless admiration as ever for my brother Jo. We may not have agreed about Brexit, but we are united in dismay at the intellectually and politically indefensible of the UK position. This is not taking back control, it is surrender of control. It does not remotely correspond to the mandate of the people in June 2016. So here we have the Johnson brothers at different ends of the Brexit spectrum when it comes to that debate, with very similar arguments, though, as to why they do not believe that Theresa May's proposals, as set out in her Chequers proposals, would be workable in any way. There's been a lot of response and reaction on Twitter from MPs who are in favour of that second referendum, the People's Vote. Justine Greening, the former Education Secretary, who is no longer in Cabinet, quit Cabinet, and a big supporter of the People's Vote, saying well done to Jo Johnson on standing up for what he believes in. He was a fantastic minister to work with. It's a sad loss for government, but Brexit is above party politics. A similar thought from a Labour MP, big backer of the People's Vote, Rupa Huck, as well, saying it's time to put personal ambition aside, that Jo Johnson had showed courage and principle. Number 10 has responded to the resignation of Jo Johnson, saying that they will not under any circumstances have a second referendum. The referendum in 2016 was the biggest democratic exercise in this country's history. But this will no doubt add to the pressure to Theresa May as she tries to navigate a way through the sticking point, the Irish backstop, the problems that this Brexit solution, or trying to find a solution, is presenting her. Just seem to go on, and there are suggestions that there could be more resignations as we enter these critical moments with the negotiations.
OK, Laura, we'll leave it there. Jo Johnson has just been speaking in the last few minutes. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Very difficult decision. we're clearly barrelling towards an incoherent Brexit that is going to see us cede control. The referendum was meant to be about taking back control, but in fact the only people who are going to gain control are the French Parliament and the German Parliament. It's certainly not our own Parliament in this process.
Why should the government says that there isn't going to be another referendum? How do you think you're going to change their mind?
Look, the deal that's being finalised at the moment in Brussels and across Whitehall is so radically different to what was proposed in the referendum campaign that I think it's really important the public is given a chance to confirm that this is indeed the extraordinary basis on which they want to leave the European Union. It's not going to deliver trade deals. Our ability to strike meaningful trade deals is going to be greatly reduced. It's not going to lead to us becoming a Singaporean turbocharged economy on the edge of Europe. Far from it. We're going to be signing up to all of the rules and regulations over which we will no longer have a say. At present, the deal is incoherent on its own terms, and that's why it's so important for the public to have a say, so it can confirm that this is really the Brexit that it wants. Thank you.
Latest statement there from Jo Johnson, resigning as Transport Minister this hour. And it's not just pressure from the likes of Jo Johnson piling on the Prime Minister today. We've had pressure from the DUP from the beginning of today. Let's speak now to our senior Ireland correspondent, David Blevins, who's live in Northern Ireland for us. And David, you've been talking to the DUP leader, Arlene Foster, in the last hour or so. What has she had to say?
Well, let me just explain, first of all, that in a letter to the Prime Minister 9 days ago, the DUP said the scope for delay or fudge or obscure language had passed. But in her response to that letter, the Prime Minister explained that the EU still wanted a Northern Ireland-only contingency in terms of the customs union and single market, the so-called backstop to the backstop. But Theresa May said she could not envisage any circumstances or conditions in which that would come into force. The problem for the DUP is that they believe that means this so-called backstop to the backstop, which is a breach of their red line on Northern Ireland not being treated differently to the rest of the UK, will be contained within the divorce deal. So they believe the Prime Minister is going to face opposition to this from within her own party, from within the Cabinet, and within the last hour, the DUP leader, Arlene Foster, made it very clear to Sky News that her party would not be supporting this route.
The letter that was sent to me by the Prime Minister essentially says that the backstop, the Northern Ireland specific backstop, is still in play, and that's not something we as unionists can support. We've always been very clear about our one red line, and it's a one red line, as you would expect from a unionist party in Northern Ireland, that we cannot be separated from the rest of the United Kingdom in terms of trade and in terms of customs. So that has always been known. It is important that we remember that the confidence and supply agreement is with the Conservative Party. And we did that because we wanted to ensure that we had that stability at Westminster, and that's still our desire.
Arlene Foster making it very clear there that the confidence and supply agreement between the DUP and the Tories is between the two parties and has nothing to do with any party leader. She didn't quite say it, but that is the clearest hint yet we've had from the DUP leader, that if the Prime Minister proceeds along this route that they've warned her not to, that they would anticipate some within the Tory party beginning to question Theresa May's leadership rather than see their partnership with the DUP fall. In fact, the Prime Minister basically now finds herself in a position where she's attempting to strike a balance between a withdrawal agreement in Brussels and that confidence and supply agreement which is keeping her government in place back in Westminster. But throughout this afternoon, Cabinet Ministers have been queuing up in their attempts to appease, I suppose, the DUP, to pour some oil on this troubled water and tell them really they've got this all wrong, that the government's position hasn't changed. This is what the Chancellor had to say to Sky News about that.
We said back last December, when the European Union first floated the idea of a Northern Ireland-specific backstop, that that would never be acceptable to the United Kingdom. We are a United Kingdom, and we're going to leave as a United Kingdom. So we won't agree to do anything that would undermine the United Kingdom.
So I'm not sure the Prime Minister has ever found herself under the same extent of Brexit pressure as she does this evening, because effectively the Tories may soon find themselves in a position where they have to choose between Theresa May, their leader, and the Democratic Unionist Party, the party that is propping up the government in Westminster. And make no mistake about it, if that partnership collapses, the government will move very swiftly into an even more vulnerable position, trying to secure DUP support on a vote-by-vote basis.
OK, David, for now, thank you very much. Let's bring you more now. And our top story for you this evening, Transport Minister Jo Johnson has resigned from the government over Brexit. Boris Johnson's brother wants a people's vote and says what Theresa May is proposing would leave the UK in a subordinate relationship to the EU. Well, former politician and father of Jo and Boris Johnson, Stanley Johnson, joins me now live. Let's speak to him live here on Sky News. Good to have you on the programme this evening, Stanley Johnson. Did you know your son was about to resign?
No, total news to me, and I've got to tell you, I'm very impressed by his actions today. I read his statement. I think this is absolutely right. It reminds me, actually, the whole thing reminds me of Tennyson's poem about the charge of the Light Brigade. You know, volleys to the left of them, volleys to the right of them, but the Prime Minister dashes onwards into the guns of the Valley of Death, and something has to give, and I think Jo has provided an opportunity for us to pause and take another deep, long look at the situation.
Really? I mean, he's a member of the Cabinet, but only a junior minister. Do you really think his resignation is going to make any difference?
I think it's going to make a huge difference because Jo, he's not a member of the Cabinet. He is a minister. He's a Minister of State. He's done a good job in 2 departments. It will make a difference because he's known as a highly intelligent, highly thoughtful person. And I can tell you he will not have reached this decision lightly. He would have simply looked at the situation. He said, look, the option on the table, which is the Chequers deal, does not deliver what the people want. It doesn't deliver what the Brexiteers wanted. It doesn't deliver what the Remainers wanted. It has to be chuck Chequers, and to some extent he is, you know, foursquare with Boris on this. Chuck Chequers. I support him. I support him. He's done the right thing at the right time.
OK, so talk me through what you think is going to happen now that your son's resigned.
This is what I think ought to happen. Whether it will happen, I do not know. But what ought to happen is this. The government will persist probably in going ahead with the Chequers proposal. I think that ought, with any luck, that should be shot down in the House of Commons. Now, instead of the government saying, but you're going to have the cliff edge, you're going to have the no-deal Brexit, on the contrary, there should be a pause. And we should say, look, it doesn't make sense to see the thing in this binary terms. What Jo has proposed in his resignation statement is a threefold deal. That is to say, you go to the people and you say, look, we have every respect for the decision you took in June 2016. This is what we tried to get. This is what we can put on the table, which is the Chequers one. The alternatives are the WTO approach or stay in. And that can be absolutely done. It can be sorted out. That could be an option which should, at this stage, be put before the people.
So what you're talking about is proposing a people's vote, i.e. a second referendum. And on every time the Prime Minister's been asked that, she's always said no. Why do you think she's going to change her mind now? Because your son's resigned. Well, I tell you something. She will change her mind, I believe. When the facts change, I change my mind. That is what John Maynard Keynes said. And I think she will realise that she does not command a majority in the House of Commons for her Chequers proposal. He's fired at, as I said, from the right, fired at from the left. It doesn't make any sense. By the way, I spent 20 years on this whole European business. It doesn't make any sense. The Europeans have an expression, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that is truly what this Chequers deal is going to leave us with. A lot of people might be watching this interview tonight, Stanley Johnson, thinking, what is wrong with your sons? Boris Johnson's resigned, now Jo Johnson. I mean, if they had any backbone, they'd stay in their position and actually help the Prime Minister. Oh, come on. This is a trivial, I've got to say, with greatest respect, that is a totally trivial point to make. Why? I mean, as far as... Why is it trivial? Is it not better for Jo Johnson to stay as Transport Minister of this country and help the Prime Minister? He says in his statement, it's a divided country. Do you think I'm so sorry. Do you think it is useful to help the Prime Minister take the country over the cliff's edge? Because it's a cliff edge either way. It's a cliff edge if you have a clean break. It's a cliff edge if you have the Chequers proposal, because that is not in the interests of this country to be 10, maybe 15 years at, you know... So the answer is to run away, not help?
Ho, 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 run away. Why, if I may say so, with great respect, are you using this sort of terminology? What is disrespectful, as far as the electorate is concerned, to say, look, we tried our damnedest, and nobody's saying Mrs. May didn't try.
But the electorate have already made the decision, haven't they, Mr. Johnson?
No,
there was a
I'm
referendum
sorry,
in 2016. The decision's made.
The electorate made a decision. The electorate instructed the government to make every effort to deliver Brexit. I'm afraid the government failed dramatically to deliver Brexit, in the sense that the offer they have put before us with Chequers does not deliver Brexit. It does not deliver Remain. It is a pig's ear, and pig's ears are best thrown out, and that is what Joe has proposed today. Honestly, I'm with him 100%. It's not that he's called Johnson. On the contrary, you know, there are other Johnsons who've taken different views. But on this particular issue, which is chucking Chequers, both Johnsons are united, and so am I.
Your son also wrote in his statement that he hoped at one point that Brexit would reunite your family. Is it really that bad? Are they both feuding?
There's no feuding, I can promise you. And in a funny way, Brexit, it's really funny you should say that. I think Brexit has, in a funny way,
So they are getting on, Boris
family.
and Joe?
Well, you know something, they were brought up together. They speak the same language. They share the same parents. I'm pretty sure they get on together. And on this particular occasion, I can't speak for Boris, I would say I very much doubt if Boris does not fully respect where Joe stands on this issue. I think somebody told me he had put out a statement. I haven't seen it. Well, I believe Boris will be behind Joe on this one. I'm behind Joe. Everybody who says, look, you've got at some stage to put, you know, the country before the party, and that's what Joe has done, we'll be behind Joe.
We'll leave it there. Stanley Johnson, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And Joe Johnson has resigned as Transport Minister, branding Theresa May's Brexit plan a terrible mistake and calling for the public to have a fresh say on leaving the European Union. The Prime Minister's alliance with the Democratic Unionist Party is also under strain after it accused her of betrayal in the negotiations, when a leaked letter indicated that Northern Ireland could follow different customs rules to the rest of the UK. The government has insisted it won't do anything to put the United Kingdom at risk. More details from our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth.
Sorry about that. Mind out. Watch your back.
Watch your back. Fateful words, perhaps, uttered earlier this year by a man who's now delivered a blow to Theresa May. Joe Johnson was, until today, the Transport Minister. But tonight he quit his job with a scathing assessment of the Prime Minister's Brexit plan. Crucially, he called for another vote, saying the current proposal was deeply flawed.
It's not going to deliver trade deals. Our ability to strike meaningful trade deals is going to be greatly reduced. It's not going to lead to us becoming a Singaporean turbocharged economy on the edge of Europe. Far from it. We're going to be signing up to all of the rules and regulations over which we will no longer have a say. At present, the deal is incoherent on its own terms, and that's why it's so important for the public to have a say, so it can confirm that this is really the Brexit that it wants.
The brother of Boris Johnson, he had, unlike his sibling, backed Remain in the referendum, but said he'd respect the result. Now, though, he says the government's Brexit plan is taking Britain to the brink of the greatest crisis since the Second World War. His decision to quit drew praise from his brother, who said we are united in dismay at the intellectually and politically indefensible UK position. This is not taking back control, it is a surrender of control. For the Prime Minister, with her European counterparts at armistice events, it's another Brexit headache, on a day she's already facing criticism from supposed allies. The DUP, who support her in government, fear she could sign up to an exit deal, which might mean Northern Ireland trades on different terms to the rest of the UK in future.
It's not a question of trusting the Prime Minister, it is a question of what her proposals are for exiting the European Union. She has sent us where she believes she is currently at. And remember, this is before she goes to Brussels to negotiate with them on what they believe is possible. But currently, as it stands, we could not support her proposals.
So it's still the Irish border and how to keep trade flowing no matter what that's proving the hardest part of this negotiation. Every possible compromise, it seems, drawing some criticism. At a summit meant to cement British-Irish relations today, ministers were quick to try to reassure.
the Prime Minister has been absolutely clear that she's not prepared to see the breakup of the constitutional and economic integrity of the United Kingdom in any deal. Now, we're working intensely now to getting that deal and securing that deal. And I think what we need to do now is calm heads, cool heads, let's get down, get the deal, and then people can comment on it when they see it.
The path to Brexit has never been smooth. Both sides are still working to agree the terms on which we leave. But as negotiations near their end, whatever that may be, it seems the Prime Minister's opponents are digging in. Number 10 has tonight issued a response to Jo Johnson's resignation in which they say the referendum in 2016 was the biggest democratic exercise in this country's history. We will not under any circumstances have a second referendum, and they go on to thank Mr Johnson for his work in government. But his resignation has attracted support from Conservative MPs who back both Brexit and Remain. It shows there is a real level of unhappiness across the board at the Prime Minister's Brexit approach, and that makes things difficult for her because if she gets agreement with the EU about the terms of departure, she has to get it through Parliament, and that will be difficult. There had been talk about a cabinet meeting in the next few days to sign off the Brexit deal. It seems there's a lot of work to do first.
Alex, thank you. Alex Forsyth.
Well, Jo Johnson's resignation is another boost to those calling for a new People's Vote referendum on Brexit. And it hasn't just been welcomed by like-minded Remainers. Chief Brexiteer and big brother Boris Johnson said the pair may not agree about Brexit, but were united in dismay over the UK's position. And the DUP leader said her party could not support Theresa May's current position. Our political correspondent Michael Crick has the latest.
Jo Johnson, one of the most able of Mrs May's junior ministers, 7 years younger than Boris Johnson, has quit exactly 4 months after his brother did. It's on the same issue, Brexit, and yet, unlike his older brother, Jo Johnson is a strong Remainer. Until now, he's been as loyal to the PM as his brother has been disloyal. This was the video he released this afternoon, without warning ministerial colleagues.
We are barrelling towards an incoherent Brexit that is going to leave us trapped in a subordinate relationship to the EU, with no say over the rules that will govern huge swathes of our economy.
Those words could have come from his Brexiteer brother, but not all of these.
I think it is imperative that we now go back to the people and check that they are content to proceed on this extraordinary basis. We will be, instead of in Europe but not run by Europe, we will be out of Europe and yet wholly subject to European rules.
In an accompanying statement, Jo Johnson goes further, saying the pending withdrawal agreement will be a terrible mistake and a con on the British people. All that is being finalised is the agreement to pay the EU tens of billions of pounds. No deal, on the other hand, he says, would inflict untold damage on our nation. And he's damning of the Prime Minister to present the nation with a choice between two deeply unattractive outcomes. Vassalage and chaos is a failure of British statecraft on a scale unseen since the Suez Crisis. Jo Johnson is one of 8 Tory MPs who've now publicly called for a second vote on Brexit. And the People's Vote campaign say they're talking to more than 40 other Conservative MPs, including 4 ministers. Johnson says the new referendum he now wants wouldn't be a rerun of 2016, but should instead give people a choice between the deal on offer, no deal, and staying within the EU. Here he was tonight.
Look, the deal that's being finalised at the moment in Brussels and across Whitehall is so radically different to what was proposed in the referendum campaign that I think it's really important the public is given a chance to confirm that this is indeed the extraordinary basis on which they want to leave the European Union. It's not going to deliver trade deals. Our ability to strike meaningful trade deals is going to be greatly reduced. It's not going to lead to us becoming a Singaporean turbocharged economy on the edge of Europe. Far from it.
We caught up with the father of the fraternal Brexit quitters.
Well, I'm reminded of Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade. I mean, volley to the left of them, volley to the right of them, and then the Prime Minister charges on into the Valley of Death. And thank God, Jo has come out today with a bit of sanity, saying we've got to draw back from this this cliff edge, which is the rubbish of the Chequers proposal, or the alternative cliff edge. We've got to draw back, take a deep breath, get some sense into the operation. That's what Joe has done. This is a man who actually thinks a lot, and he hasn't come out with this lightly, I can tell you that.
And yet, the 2015 Conservative manifesto pledged to respect the vote last time. A manifesto written by one Joe Johnson.
Now, Theresa May hasn't just lost a minister tonight, but she's also lost a vote, as Joe Johnson's made it clear he's going to vote against the withdrawal deal in the Commons. And the figures in the Commons are getting very, very difficult for the government. It's becoming clear a number of Remainerish types are going to vote against the government on this, as well as the Brexiteers. And indeed, even now, today, the DUP are making it clear that as things stand, they can't support what the government is planning because they feel that Mrs May is going to agree to a backstop that could involve a customs and regulations border down the Irish Sea. This is what the DUP leader, Arlene Foster, said not long ago.
There are stages to go through before it comes to Parliament. She still has to have a cabinet meeting in relation to this matter, and we believe that there is a chance for her to reflect on the fact that we will not be able to support it in its current form.
Now, if the People's Vote campaign are celebrating tonight, perhaps they ought to think again and take a look at what Jeremy Corbyn has told Der Spiegel magazine on Brexit. We can't stop it, says Mr Corbyn. The referendum took place. Article 50 has been triggered. What we can do is recognise the reasons why people voted leave.
Thanks, Michael. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to the former Attorney General Dominic Grieve, and I asked him how there could be a second referendum if Theresa May doesn't put that option to Parliament.
I have every hope that the Prime Minister, if she gets to the point where it's clear that a deal is not acceptable to Parliament if we get a deal, and that we have to think about doing something different, I hope that she would be willing to listen to Parliament if Parliament says that they think a people's vote second referendum is what should happen.
Does Joe Johnson's resignation make that more likely, that her deal will fail in Parliament?
I think that on the basis of what we've heard about this deal, I find it very difficult to see how it is going to get through the House of Commons. It's not criticism for her efforts. She has tried and is trying very hard indeed. But no Parliament is going to vote through, in my view, a deal which they think is going to be a second or even third-rate relationship to the existing one we have with the EU.
Downing Street is banking on people like you blinking and saying, if it comes down to the choice at the last minute, if we vote this down, we will hard Brexit. Are you saying you definitely will not blink at the last minute?
I will certainly not be blinking at the last minute because of fear of a hard Brexit. No, absolutely not. Clearly, I listen carefully to any deal the Prime Minister brings to the House of Commons. But the argument that we have a binary choice between the deal the government brings and a hard Brexit is one that I entirely reject.
But how will you stop the hard Brexit if the deal is voted down, we are heading for the cliff edge? How do you stop us going over?
If Parliament decides to assert its authority, it is possible, first of all, to get the Article 50 period extended so that we have a breathing space. And secondly, it's possible for Parliament to debate and discuss what we should do. And the obvious answer is to go to the public and say to them, this is the deal you're going to get. Is this what you really wanted or not?
But
and the
only
alternative
if the Prime
would be
Minister
to remain
agrees.
in the EU.
Only if the government decides to put that. I mean, as you know, you can't pass a motion and make it happen.
You're absolutely right that the cooperation of the government is needed for Parliament to exert its authority. But I have every hope that the Prime Minister would listen to Parliament, because the alternative in those circumstances would be almost certainly that the government would fall.
Do you actually think the public's changed its view?
I think there's a great deal to suggest that the public are changing their view, and that a lot of people now realise that, in fact, leaving the EU in the way that is projected is likely to leave us at a disadvantage. That's something which we've got to take into account.
Dominic Grieve, thank you very much.
If the government was hoping they were doggedly inching their way to a deal to leave the EU, that progress was served a shuddering jolt this evening with the resignation of Joe Johnson. A junior transport minister, maybe, but unlike most of those who have resigned over Brexit before, including his older brother Boris, he was a Remainer. In a stinging statement, he said the PM strategy would leave us economically weakened with no say in the EU rules it must follow, and that the public should have a fresh say on what kind of Brexit they should pursue.
He may be less well known than his brother, but his decision to resign could yet prove even more devastating for the Prime Minister. On the brink of a deal, he says Brexit as proposed is a terrible mistake, while no deal would bring chaos. He now wants another referendum.
Mr Johnson, why have you decided to quit the government?
Well, good evening. It's a very difficult decision, but we're clearly barrelling towards an incoherent Brexit that is going to see us cede control. The referendum was meant to be about taking back control, but in fact the only people who are going to gain control are the French Parliament and the German Parliament. It's certainly not our own Parliament in this process.
Why should the government says that there isn't going to be another referendum? How do you think you're going to change their mind?
Look, the deal that's being finalised at the moment in Brussels and across Whitehall is so radically different to what was proposed in the referendum campaign that I think it's really important the public is given a chance to confirm that this is indeed the extraordinary basis on which they want to leave the European Union.
Appointed Transport Minister in January, he says what's now on offer would weaken the economy and is nothing like what was promised 2 years ago. One of those making such promises, his elder brother Boris, who resigned for very different reasons in July, but tonight tweeted his support, saying, "We may not have agreed about Brexit, but we are united in dismay at the intellectually and politically indefensible of the UK position." All this as the Prime Minister was finalising details of that position over a working lunch with President Macron while in France for the armistice commemorations. It just so happened her Chancellor had been asked about the prospect of resignations earlier.
Practical politics is about making sensible compromises.
Would it matter if someone did resign?
Well, I hope nobody will. I very much hope nobody will.
But one pro-EU MP warned more were to come.
I know there are a lot of ministers who share his views. They are unhappy and they are concerned. I know there are lots of my colleagues on the backbenches who share that view as well. And, you know, the time has now come when you've got to put the country's interests first.
The chances of Mrs May getting her deal through Parliament were also dealt a blow today by the DUP, who say as it stands they won't back it.
There are stages to go through before it comes to Parliament. She still has to have a cabinet meeting in relation to this matter, and we believe that there is a chance for her to reflect on the fact that we will not be able to support it in its current form.
But what did Joe Johnson's father make of his son's resignation?
Even though it may be a career-ending move, there comes a time when a chap has to say, my career, even my loyalty to the party, does not necessarily trump what I believe to be the interests of the country.
But his departure is unlikely to be seen by the Prime Minister in quite such a generous light.
Libby, this is a prominent Remainer resigning, which is rare. So it feels like a significant problem for Theresa May, but also a big moment for those who've been campaigning for a second referendum.
Yes, Joe Johnson was the brother who liked to keep out of the headlines. In fact, many people may not have heard of him until today. So I think the impact of him deciding to quit now will be quite significant. Also, Boris Johnson is known for having a very colourful turn of phrase. He was the one who was calling on people to chuck Chequers and not to bottle Brexit. But his brother, Joe Johnson, has produced what one might say is a much more sober and sobering assessment of what the country now faces in terms of the choice we face, essentially setting out that we have a choice of accepting the deal that Theresa May has been negotiating, which he says would leave us weaker economically and much less influential on the world stage, or no deal, which he says, as Transport Minister, he's seen up close just how damaging that would be. He says there are real questions about whether the government could actually guarantee supplies of food and medicine. I think that is something that people will take notice of. I think it will have a big impact, and people who are campaigning for a second referendum will be encouraged by this.
Important moment. Thank you very much indeed, Libby.
Just as the Prime Minister seemed to be successfully herding the Brexit cats towards some sort of announcement early next week, the government has lost another minister. And this time, it's not an angry leaver. Rather, today's departure, Transport Minister Joe Johnson, had been a Remainer and seemingly still is. And now he's calling for a second referendum. So why is this any more than the Johnson brother with the sensible hair following Boris to the backbenches? For Downing Street, it's the realisation that Brexit is under assault from a wing of the Conservative Party that until now it had been neglecting. Here's Chris Cook.
Joe Johnson, a pro-Remain minister, has resigned from his post over Brexit. His brother, the pro-Leave Boris Johnson, resigned in the summer to fight for a Brexit that would lead to as little alignment to the EU as possible. But Joe, a former Transport and Science Minister, is open to stopping Brexit altogether via a referendum.
The deal that's being finalised at the moment in Brussels and across Whitehall is so radically different to what was proposed in the referendum campaign that I think it's really important the public is given a chance to confirm that this is indeed the extraordinary basis on which they want to leave the European Union.
Where the two brothers agree, however, is that the deal being pursued by the government is a bad one. And the pro-Remain Johnson has issued a critique that's actually been endorsed by a lot of Brexiters who want a harder break, including his brother.
Our ability to strike meaningful trade deals is going to be greatly reduced. It's not going to lead to us becoming a Singaporean turbocharged economy on the edge of Europe. Far from it. We're going to be signing up to all of the rules and regulations over which we will no longer have a say. At present, the deal is incoherent on its own terms.
The significance of the resignation, however, is about pressure. We've had Brexiter resignations like David Davis, Steve Baker and Boris Johnson. Remainers who've resigned over Brexit have been lower profile. Guto Bebb, Dr Philip Lee and now Joe Johnson. But are Tory Remainers about to up the pressure? Joe Johnson has said that he would vote against the proposed deal, and other pro-Remain Tories may follow him. A vote for no deal to provoke a crisis and a change in national direction. This may put them in the bizarre position of voting alongside Tory MPs like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who are in favour of a harder Brexit than the government plans. Number 10 says nothing has changed. There will be no referendum. But Theresa May's route to passing a deal through the Commons is currently hard to make out.
Chris Cook there. Well, we're joined now by the former Attorney General, Conservative MP Dominic Grieve, who is, of course, a prominent Remainer. Welcome. Look, I mean, it's a cliche, but is this too little too late for people of your mindset? You're not really going to stop anything at this point, are you?
I don't think it's too little too late at all. It always seemed to me that what was going to happen is that as we got close to the crunch, it would become clear that, in fact, our ability to get the sort of advantageous deal that people were talking about 2 years ago was just a pipe dream. And that actually where we're heading is towards a disadvantageous outcome, which leaves us substantially worse off than if we were in the EU itself. And as I think Joe Johnson so rightly said, this idea of the transformation of the United Kingdom into some sort of turbocharged Singapore of the North East Atlantic is a complete pipe dream that is not supported by anything more than a sliver of the electorate.
Does it worry you, though, that some people on the hard Brexit side of the party are welcoming this, almost as if sort of bring on the chaos, bring down the Chequers blueprint, and let's have a no-deal situation might be their preferred outcome, and you're playing into their hands implicitly?
I certainly don't want chaos, and I'm keen that we should get through this process to a better future. But the difficulty we have is that if we sign up to the deal which the Prime Minister is likely to bring to Parliament, then we guarantee that the country leaves the EU on the 29th of March with a very poor deal, which takes us into a place where I think in 2 years' time there won't be hardly a member of the electorate will approve of what we've done. So how can I try to prevent that from happening? Well, the only way in which we can prevent that from happening is by Parliament asserting its authority, and I would like to think persuading the Prime Minister that there has to be another route.
And doing that has to happen pretty soon, doesn't it? If some of these timelines that we've heard are right, that she does want to talk about the possible solution next week, and that really, for there to be a meeting of European leaders in December, Parliament has to have its vote pretty soon.
The timelines are certainly very short, but it's worth bearing in mind that I think if the United Kingdom Parliament collectively decided it wanted some different outcome, and, for example, wanted a people's vote to consult people on whether they wanted this deal, I'm quite sure the EU would give us the time to do that, because the EU is an organisation that is heavily bound by law. It is a legal construct, and if we say it's part of our constitutional requirement that we go back and consult the electorate, they will let us do that.
But you're comfortable that at that point, in what, I mean, it would be an enormous parliamentary moment, wouldn't it? You would be siding with Labour MPs, SNP, I mean, you'd be siding with a lot of people who you wouldn't normally be, and members of your own party would be accusing you of betraying the Brexit voters.
This is a matter where I'd like to hope that we can take the Prime Minister with us. She's tried very hard to get a good deal for the country. I don't criticise her. I'm afraid that what I see is...
She's not going to come with you on that, though. She's made it really clear.
I have no idea whether she will or she will not.
It's
but
bluster,
my preference would be that she does, if she realises that, in fact, the deal is unacceptable to Parliament. Clearly, if she doesn't, that makes life more complicated for a variety of reasons. But I have to say, this is a matter where, quite frankly, country comes before party allegiance. This is without doubt the single most important decision we're going to make in our modern history, and we are heading probably for the biggest peacetime crisis that we've ever had in modern history as well. And we've got to get the right outcome, and party allegiance has to be secondary in those circumstances.
And if this is going to happen pretty quickly, as you seem to agree, what's the tipping point? Who steps forward to bring together these MPs of different persuasions, different parties, to unite around a demand for a second referendum?
Firstly, we obviously have to see what deal, if any, the Prime Minister is able to bring back. I mean, she may not be able to bring any deal back at all that she herself can accept. If the deal is unacceptable, then Parliament will express its opinion on that. Once Parliament has expressed its opinion on that, then I would hope that the government, having realised that Parliament disapproves of the deal, will then listen to what Parliament has to say collectively about alternative routes.
Extraordinary times we could be in for. Thank you very much, Dominic. Well, let's have a quick look at the papers. The journalistic herd all stampeding together on the Joe Johnson story, the worst crisis since Suez. That's the Times plucking a line from his resignation statement about the Hobson's choice that Brexit's left the UK with. The Telegraph, brothers united in dismay at the PM's deal, the fact that Boris Johnson has also chimed in on this. And then the Mail, crisis for PM as Boris Johnson's brother walks out. Well, there it is. Well, to help us digest that news and what's in some of the opinion columns tomorrow, we have Stanley Johnson and Dawn Foster with us, which is great. We've got to start with you.
Yeah,
I'm a spectator.
I was invited on here tonight.
Funny thing, that.
I see, funny thing. Glad to see that he's made the headlines or whatever. Well, honestly, I've actually read the full text of the thing in the
Spectator.
And it's a first-rate argument. It's brilliant. You may say you'd expect me to say
paternal
that,
pride.
wouldn't you? Of course, it's more than paternal pride. I think someone needed to say it. Truth to tell, he says that if the government has presented us with a choice between vassalage and chaos, this is, he says, I think, a failure of foreign policy or failure of policy unmatched since Suez. He's got to be right there, and I think there is a way forward. And I think Dominic Grieve, a moment ago on your programme, more or less pointed it out. So, bully for Joe, bully for putting this out there in the public news.
Yeah, let's just pluck a quote from the article in The Spectator. He's talking about his desire to reunite the country, party and family too. I mean, his brother Boris is with him for the moment, but presumably if Joe Johnson gets his way on a second referendum, that family unity could be short-lived. Sorry, Stanley.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, it seems strange that he's decided to do so now. I'm sure you know more than I do. But at this point, it feels completely and utterly out there. We have to get on with Brexit. It seems so late for a second referendum. And, it feels as though most people actually want to get towards a deal. And the majority of people want to see what will happen with the Irish border, which people will not discuss over and over again. Theresa May will say that we're 95% of the way towards a deal, but that 5%, the Irish border, is so important. And it just seems as though people are desperately trying to obfuscate over and over again. We need to get to a deal and finish Brexit. And it feels as though trying to move towards a second referendum so late in the day is such a distraction at this point.
Stanley, quickly on that, will family unity be short-lived if Joe gets his
well, not necessarily.
Second referendum?
Not necessarily. I mean, Boris is a fighter, and I could well see him saying, OK, you want a referendum? You want a referendum which includes the in-out issue? bring it on. I could see Boris saying that. I mean, I haven't had this conversation with him, but I don't think he would flinch from making his point again as he made it 2 years ago.
I mean, Boris, notoriously...
He'd be wrong, by the way.
He notoriously wrote 2 columns, one for in, one for out. So who knows what Boris would do at this point? I think, we can look away from Stanley's 2 sons
it's no good
and look...
Dawn, it's no good you're saying we're up against the deadline. This is far too important to say we've got to take a situation because Brenda in Bristol is fed up with,
I'm going to have to say that I think that we should look at the will of the people instead of the will of your 2 sons at this point.
But how many Labour MPs might be thinking the same thing as Jo Johnson?
At this point, I'm not sure. Labour MPs seem to be mostly united around trying to get the best deal out of Brexit because they respect the will of the people. The majority of people still did vote for Brexit.
The leadership, but
yeah, the majority of people still did vote for Brexit, either you overturn it
Chequers does not.
We're going to gallop on because of the remembrance theme, the Alison Pearson piece in The Telegraph, and she's got a message about national service. I think she wants her teenage son to have the discipline of an RSM. I think it says something like that. What do you make of that?
I have friends who've done national service, and I think there are 2 types of national service. So some of my friends have done it in Greece, and they were involved in the army, and it has made them completely pacifist. It has really made them angry, and it's really not helped them actually like their country. Whereas I think that if it comes to the fact that if it's voluntary, if, as in some Scandinavian countries, you can, instead of being unemployed, you can be involved in helping your local community, that could be really helpful. I think that we should look at people who are under 25, who are out of employment, and see if we can give them more money to help build their local communities. That would be good national service. I think drafting people into army...
If we're going to have national service, let's have a problem. I missed it by a month. I always regret. I mean, I was born in 1940 and national service ended for people who were still in 1999. But if we're going to have it, let's have it properly. I love the CCF. The old Lee Enfield rifles. Bang, bang, bang.
But also you could be helping in hospitals and social work, care for the elderly.
That sounds like the Peace Corps,
What's wrong with that?
Well, they used to do it in Germany.
Either we've got soldiers or we haven't got soldiers. I mean, I think the idea of national service to help hospitals and stuff like that is just too wet.
What's wrong with helping people?
Well... I'm sorry. I think we're just... On that thought, what's wrong with helping people? I think we've probably got to bring it to a close. Dawn and Stanley, thank you both very much.